Hello, everyone. My name is Princiya, and I am an engineering manager at Anaconda. And I was the leadership fellow for Frontend. From this year on, it's Luz. So Luz is here. Hi, Luz, and thanks for being here in this event. Luz will moderate the chat. Luz, and feel free to interrupt me if there are questions or any technical glitches. So let's get started. Today's webinar is about front-end to serverless. So I'll kind of show you some demos that I have built around serverless and the Jamstack architecture. Give you a very brief overview about what is serverless, what is Jamstack, and how to not get overwhelmed, basically, because there are like cloud of possibilities. So for me, it's certainly overwhelming. There are like endless options. And the one thing is, if you kind of search for certain things, you won't get like an exact demo because people would have tried different combinations, different possibilities. So it's all about us getting actually getting practical and trying out various options with the kind of tutorials that are there. So I'll kind of like walk you through about the demos that I have, why I did, why was I motivated, and sort of give you an overview about how to go next from here. If you have like, I won't be like watching chat because today I only have one screen. So Luz, feel free to interrupt me. And so I'll start with the use case about what I started with serverless on the serverless side. So this screen of mine that y'all share, that y'all see is a Gatsby blog, and this is what I kind of maintain for the Women Who Code front-end activity. So I kind of use this. And all the events that are upcoming, I kind of maintain all the graphics in this place, the speaker details. In this case, it's me. So because it's the end of my fellowship term, I thought, why not just give a talk myself? So I kind of like built a mini plugin to kind of display all the time zones, because it kind of comes very handy about the various time zones at this time happening today. So these times especially are never friendlier on the Australian side or on the other side. A quick overview about the code of conduct before we begin all our Women Who Code events. So Women Who Code is an inclusive community, and we kind of dedicated to providing an empowering experience for everyone who participates and supports our community. So if you have any concerns, please report to us, and you can also find the code of conduct. And this slideshow that you all see is also like a custom-made plugin that I did for this blog. So kind of have the slides, and you could call that I'm a not lazy, but it was like a lot of additional work sometimes to kind of have slides in one place, speaker details in different place, copy paste, or kind of when the kind of talk is scheduled, I kind of use this, pull everything, and the slides are kind of already there. So our mission for Women Who Code is inspiring women to excel in technology careers. Our vision is a world where diverse women are better represented as engineers and tech leaders. And our values, these are the core Women Who Code's core values. Our target is engineers who are looking for support and resources to strengthen their influence and level up in their careers. Okay. So about me, I'm based in Berlin. So I have like, more than a dozen years of experience, mostly building full stack web and mobile apps. So recently I've also like focused particularly on the mobile side, thanks to React Native. Some of my interests as I was transitioning from a full stack to a front end specific, and then exploring what needs to do, I kind of was very much driven on the DevOps side. So automating stuff, CI/CDs, infrastructures, and that's also where today's topic comes in. So it kind of like comes very handy as a front end person or as a full stack person when after certain years of experience, as you're exploring to expand your horizon, expand your focus areas, this cloud is definitely like a good area to focus on. So this for future things, this will be like the leadership fellow. So my term will end in next month. And yeah, Luz is here. So again, welcome, Luz. This is like the first event taking place after kind of Luz is officially here. And yeah, otherwise, I work as an engineering manager at Anaconda. So that's about me. Okay, now coming back to this idea about why I kind of what kind of demos I'll show you all. So earlier this year in Q1, it was, yeah, January, New Year, new resolutions. I kind of wanted to get into regular rhythm of writing stuff. So I kind of did this experiment, published this sort of series, what to learn series on a bi-weekly basis. So we did this for the whole of Q1. So the first 3 issues I wrote, and these 3 issues were written by the community. So thanks to Faith and Kimi, if you are here, thank you so much for contributing to this. So this was like a pilot effort in Q1. So now when I was doing this, one of my use case was, here is the front-end Slack channel. So a lot of people yeah, post various things. So I wanted to kind of like keep the rhythm going on. What I wanted to do was kind of aggregate this community showcase post. So based on all the questions that get asked in the community, I kind of, or all the discussions that happen, I kind of wanted to aggregate this. So put it in a common place. And when it was time for me to send this post or finish writing this post, I could like kind of compile it from one place. So the idea was, because our community usually operates on Slack, so I wanted to kind of build a Slack bot. So if you see here, I guess it should be like activated for everyone. So if you click here, there is the save Femi. So Femi is the name I gave for this Slack bot. I'll also like get into the details about how I did. So there is like a JavaScript extension for the Slack bot. Sorry, a JavaScript SDK for Slack, where you can write JavaScript versions of the code. So I kind of added this. I have admin permissions here, so I've kind of added this bot. So now let's say, like, you know what, I'll do this save Femi, right? So I click this, nothing happens, because this is just like a small demo, only I use, so it works for my use case. And then when I save it, so just remember, this is the article that I shared. And now this is my serverless application that I have. So let me refresh. It was earlier 27, so now it's going to be 28. So the article that I just shared kind of gets saved here. And this is the one. So the way it gets saved is like, it's not optimized, but this is the article that I kind of just shared, clicking on the Slack bot. So this is wrote an article about how to build a React Native theme switcher. And this, yeah, so that got saved. So now it's like it's got saved on the cloud. I'll get into the details. And now, so any of such articles that got shared, I kind of wanted to put it into a central place. And then when the time came for me to write the post, I kind of wanted to filter about the articles written on a certain period, because the cadence for my writing those posts was bi-weekly. So kind of wanted to filter it. So let's say this was something I started in January. So let me try to filter, because in the month of January, there are like a bunch of articles that kind of saved or was actively trying to use this stuff. So I'm just trying to filter from mid-January, and I kind of get 2 articles, right? So then what I wanted was, again, this like, it's not complete, but it kind of like saved the purpose about kind of helped me complete the idea that I wanted. So now I have these filtered articles. The next step, which is not completed, would have been kind of automate this, get this into a list somewhere, and kind of write another serverless function to kind of send this email. So this part I did not complete because, yeah, there were, talking about the scale, it was not so much of a scale. I could still like copy manually, put it into the post that I wanted to kind of publish, and I could still get an aggregated view. But the purpose was, I kind of wanted to look more into serverless kind of options, because there are like tons of options, different providers, various sort of mix and match combinations. I kind of picked like one certain thing, and yeah, it also like kind of helped me sort of conceptualize what I wanted to automate, part of the work, part of the community stuff that I wanted to automate. So far, so good. Liz, are there any questions, or can I keep moving?
We can keep going.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so this is like, this is what is it, right? Yeah. Earlier this year, we also like did specifically cloud front-end specific series. So if you all go to, I'll share the links in the chat shortly. But if at all you go here and if at all, yeah, there is this cloud front-end tag series. So we kind of did these bi-weekly series specifically on the looking at different serverless options. So we looked at Azure, we looked at AWS, thanks to the speakers, Sunita and Jolly. So they did those sessions, and this was again in combination with the cloud track. So this was kind of like well received. So all the videos are uploaded. Oh, sorry, yeah, not that one. That's today's. But yeah, if that are like also videos that y'all can check for the previous events that happened. So I kind of just wanted to quickly give an overview about. We kind of did a similar series earlier this year. Okay, so coming to this application, so this is like, yeah, this kind of gets articles. So now trying to connect the dots about what I said. So there is this Slack bot, it kind of tries to save. And then when you kind of actually save, it has to get saved. It has to get saved somewhere. So it kind of gets saved here in the Supabase. Supabase is the database I chose. There are like multiple options for databases. Again, I'll talk about that deeply, but I'll just kind of finish this, the demo article that I'm kind of talking about. So yeah, whatever we saved just got saved here, right? So this is the database that this application uses, and the cloud provider that this application works on is Netlify. So that's like trying to close the loop on that demo. So now taking a step back, and so I'll kind of quickly give an overview about what is serverless, what is Jamstack, what are the various options that are there. So if you all have questions, feel free to write them down or yeah, raise your hand. So about serverless, right? Serverless kind of what, so serverless, it doesn't mean no servers at all. Serverless means it allows developers to build and run applications without having to manage your own servers. So what this means is the servers are actually abstracted from the app development and a cloud provider. So in my case, I kind of showed Netlify. A cloud provider handles provisioning, maintaining, and scaling the server infrastructure, while the developers can just focus on code and app development and not the actual infrastructure itself. So this is why it is serverless. So it's like less overhead on maintaining servers, so developers can actually write code. Now, as a front-end focused developer, what this means to me is it kind of gives additional wings. I can amplify my web development skills, and it kind of, yeah, if I am participating any hackathons, or if I have to build like a proof of concept or working kind of demo, this is kind of like, it's really good. So I kind of like immediately share the link, have a very good portfolio of projects, and which is a very good way to learn stuff. It's not just on local host, but I can also like get it deployed. So there are like various providers, and Jamstack, what it means is JAM. J stands for JavaScript, A stands for API, and M is for markup. So the kind of demo that I shared, it's this particular blog post, it's Gatsby, and Gatsby is a static site generator. And static site generators like Gatsby and the others kind of started popularizing the Jamstack. Where, yeah, there is JavaScript, there is API, and there is markup, right? In the case of Gatsby, so it's a React powered static site generator. You kind of write APIs using GraphQL, and GraphQL is a query language format for APIs. And you can write your blog post using markup. So that's like kind of fits well within the Jamstack trend. This one does not have any sort of serverless functionality, because this is just like a static site, and all the content that is written, it's kind of compiled and served on client side. And for this particular thing, I use GitHub pages. So there is no special deployment required. So this is the use case of this particular thing. Now, coming to this application that I spoke, it's again a React-based application. So it's like a regular React form. There is like a submit button, like you'll see here, there are like 2 submit buttons. So I can directly save from here. The use case that I showed was coming from here, click save. So it's kind of like, it's a common function which takes care of the save functionality. So there is a function that gets called, and that function in the use case of this application is a serverless function. And serverless, a term that also goes well with the serverless is function as a service. So in my case, in this particular thing, there is a function which kind of acts as a service, and that's what is available via Netlify. So if I were to exactly show you the functions that I have, so it's the Femi function that is there, which is kind of like up and running, and I don't have an additional overhead of maintaining infrastructure myself. So kind of like there are various providers. Some of the providers are AWS, Cloudflare, Google Cloud Provider, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, Azure from Microsoft, and then Netlify in this case, which I used, which I showed an example. Then there is Vercel. There are like lots of them, Cloudflare, etc. Vercel is also like a similar provider. And now with this, so the context of serverless or serverless functions or function as a services, there is a function which kind of you can deploy it using one of the providers, and it's available, right? So now this is where it kind of gets nice. So as long as it is there somewhere, it doesn't have to be stateful, right? So there necessarily doesn't have to be a database. It really depends on the use case. You can just have a function as a service to kind of maybe just generate memes for people to interact with, or just show some codes where kind of like it's like a regular JSON file or a static thing where it picks codes from, randomizes, kind of plays around. So there are like various use cases. In my case, because I kind of wanted to save all the articles coming from Slack, plus based on what I read, I kind of wanted to store it somewhere. And when it came on a bi-weekly basis to share with the community, I kind of wanted to get a consolidated view within that timeline and kind of share. So I kind of wanted that saving sort of capacity wherein I wanted a database, and I chose Supabase. So a good overview, this article has a good overview about Supabase, all the database providers that kind of go well with the serverless functions. And this is also like a database as a provider. So there are like X as a provider, right? So there are like various concepts around this as a service. So this is like a database as a service. There are like bunch of options. Initially, Netlify, when it started, it had a, I think Fauna was kind of inbuilt. I'm not sure, but a lot of examples with Netlify you'll find around Fauna. But I kind of checked Supabase because I was reading a lot about Supabase. So I wanted to try, and to get started with Supabase was quite easy. So I had to register for an account, click my organization, create a table, define the tables that I wanted, and kind of link it. I'll share the code shortly. So that's like the various options if you all want to choose database. And this is where, at least to me, this is like endless cloud of possibilities, because if you were to really look for a particular option, you can totally get lost in deciding the various options that are there. And let's say like you decide to choose on Fauna and you look for a particular example, high chances are there. So let's say you're looking for an example, Fauna with some provider, right? Let's say Fauna with Vercel. There might be an example, Fauna with Vercel. It could be that somebody tried to do something, somebody shared a tutorial, but high chances are that it might have been outdated because things would have changed. Fauna might have had a new version. The documentation from Fauna would be up to date, but the integration with the provider would be different, right? With the serverless provider. So this is where, if at all you really want to narrow down, it's all about you trying yourself about what that option you want and kind of figuring out, which is also like a very good way to learn stuff. And if at all you do that, kind of share it. So I try to do that, do the stuff, and I kind of shared this in my blog. So it's kind of like serverless React. That's like the first part. And the second part, I call it like stateful serverless. And this is where I was trying to tell earlier. So without a database, it can still be stateless, meaning it can be just like a function as a service. It can still be a serverless function, but necessarily doesn't have to be, has a database. And when you talk about database, it then kind of you add state to that persistent state. It needs to be saved somewhere, and then you can call it like a stateful serverless. So yeah, serverless can start with stateless, depends on what kind of a function as a service you want to write, and then the use case about do you want to make it stateful versus not. So in terms of showing code about what I have, so the first part of it is a form, like you'll see here. So this is like the form, and the code to this is it's a React application, like I said. Let me move this around. Okay, so there is like a form with a traditional form, and then there are like submit handlers. So I have two submit handlers, handle submit for the first part, and the next one is handle submit filter. So this is the filtering option that I shared. So in this case, when I actually save an article, and this is where it kind of calls this Netlify function, article create, it kind of creates the article. And this function, the way most of these serverless providers have like a similar format, you have to create like a functions directory and put your function that you want, and this gets called as a function as a service because then the provider kind of deploys it. So now I have article create, and this is my article create. I kind of like create an article. So like you see here, I have a Supabase JavaScript SDK, which kind of lets me query to the database. Article is the name of the table, and kind of I try to save title description. The same thing that gets called from the Slack bot. So it's like another function because all of these are independent functions. So they kind of operate as function as a service. And like you see here, this is like a Slack bot. And this is the JavaScript SDK that I said to write bots for Slack, which is very cool. I was also very curious to how to write my own Slack bot. So this kind of got me take this idea further. So there are like API keys, which are kind of saved in the environment file. So I have a Slack signing secret, Slack bot token, and I also have environment keys for my database for the Supabase. So all of these come from the Supabase interface. And then what happens is when I click this particular link, so it's like save Femi, what actually happens is it calls this Netlify function as a service. It calls this. And the code of this is, it's this one. So this is like a general syntax of how Netlify functions work. Cloudflare is also similar, AWS Lambdas. It's a similar syntax. It's just that, yeah, the few things might change, but usual the syntax or the format is kind of similar. And then, yeah, it's kind of, this is coming from the Slack bot. So when you click, it calls the function. It's kind of deployed on Netlify, and this is the code behind it. So I kind of get the response from my Slack bot, what that message was. And then I kind of save this into my Supabase database. And then, yeah, like I said, yeah, yes.
Can you please show the code? I think that we are just seeing the browser output.
Oh, thanks. Cool. Yeah, I think it was about how I was sharing my screen. Thanks, Liz. Now do you see, and now do you also see this one, the browser?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. So the first part, so you all didn't see the form at all, right? Then this is the code for the form. So this is the form. This is the form, like it's a small form which is not styled. So there are like two submit buttons, and this is like the syntax for the form. So a kind of create and a kind of filter, and then there are like two event handlers, submit filter and submit. So when we actually call submit, I kind of also can save articles directly from the UI, and I can also save articles from the Femi, the Slack bot, and it calls the same, it goes to the same place. So this article create is like the first function that's here. It kind of creates an article, saves into the Supabase, so it's like the same credentials. And then coming from Femi, what it does also is like similar thing. So like you'll see here, this is the JavaScript SDK from Slack to write Slack bots. And there is also Supabase, so JavaScript SDK to connect Supabase, all the URLs. All the environment stuff is saved in here in environment variable, all the keys that I want. And what it does is kind of almost similar. So it kind of receives the response from the Slack message, and then talks to the Supabase, and the article gets saved. So no matter if I'm creating manually via the UI or saving an article from Femi, it goes to the same Supabase database, and both are like operate as function as a service. So I kind of like only had to get the Netlify CLI connect to my GitHub repository, and Netlify takes it from there. So it deploys itself. And yeah, these functions are there. I kind of don't worry about how to provision the database, how to scale my infrastructure. And for certain requests, it's kind of free only when the requests kind of go like a certain threshold, they kind of start charging. So it's kind of very good if you all want to build certain projects, want to share it with others, want to build a portfolio. Most of these cloud providers have free tiers. And only if you have like a very commercial use case, they kind of start charging, which is also like one of the use case of serverless, to kind of for us not to worry about all these payments, etc., and then like pay based on the nature of the request or the number of requests, etc. So this is kind of like what I wanted to share, give you all an overview about. I also wanted to try the Cloudflare part. It's just that, my demo was not ready. So this is like one demo that I wanted to share. I have another demo. So there is like another thing. So context to this is I'm kind of running a workshop next week. So it's a 2-hour workshop where participants will get to build a serverless function from scratch. And I thought while they kind of build and deploy, I could also get to see the likes for this workshop. So kind of build this demo. So this link will be shared during the workshop. I'll kind of reset it to 0 because I have Supabase access. I'll reset to 0, and then they can kind of vote it. And yeah, it kind of, I can see the likes in real time. So this is kind of the thing that I plan to do. Again, this is like a React kind of React UI, where there is like an event handler. And when I click the event handler, it calls a Netlify powered function, which is operating on Netlify, and this is the function. There is like the get vote, and there is like actual vote itself, which kind of gets the vote from Supabase and writes the vote on the Supabase. And the code for this it's this one. So this is where it kind of updates the vote. I only have like one row, so everyone will be kind of writing to the same one. Kind of want to see the likes in real time. And yeah, so this is like general syntax, all JavaScripty, and this is kind of fits in well with the JamScript stack. So you have JavaScript, you have the power of APIs, you have markup, and serverless powered things are kind of like cool way to kind of amplify web development skills, to kind of learn and understand more about databases, to get a better overview about full stack, if this is something that you want to grow career-wise, etc. Yeah, I guess I'll pause here at this stage. So if you have questions. Okay, so could you share the code on GitHub? Yes, of course. I'll get the link. Come on later. Yeah, Luz, maybe you have any questions or sort of I should have spoken more about, because yeah, this is like the demo. I'll stop here. So if anybody has specific questions, I can go more on that. So this is the code for the first serverless code that I shared. And I also wrote like a 2-part blog post here and everything about the front end, the Gatsby blog, and the event itself is everything is here. Yeah.
Is there any resources, Princiya, for anyone that wants to get started from the basics?
About serverless?
Yeah, and to kind of have the theoretical part to follow the example of the demo.
Yeah, so the blog post that I shared kind of like is at least how I started from scratch when I was trying to get like a proper thing about serverless. Yeah, then it kind of depends on how you want to navigate through this space. So serverless keyword on Google kind of gives you a number of possibilities. So some of the articles that you might want to refer directly are, or at least my favorite ones are from Cloudflare, because they have like a very nice overview about, or they've tried to explain well. You should also check the tutorials from Cloudflare because they have nice working demos. The demo that I showed was in Netlify. So Netlify, Cloudflare are all different providers, also like AWS, Azure, Vercel, for example. So coming from the Vercel side, you might hear a lot of options or a lot of blog posts around Next.js powered on Vercel and supporting serverless. So there are like all these buzzwords going on. So sometimes there might be a lot of FOMO happening about, yeah, you might want to stay up to date, but there are so many options. And also the link about databases that I shared, which was kind of an overview from Vercel. There are like a lot of options if even for the database that you want to choose for your serverless code to make it stateful. And all these databases do come up with the JavaScript SDK as well, which is kind of good. So for JavaScripters, it's kind of nice. Like everybody kind of tries to do a JavaScript SDK, and it's just trying to identify what sort of option do we want. So always come up, it's always good to come up with a use case about what you want to do. You can always start with a to-do list, if at all, yeah, you cannot come up with a concrete thing. You can try to come up with your own to-do list. One of the good ways I have found to learn new things is, or to identify what you want to build is, try to think about the day-to-day applications that you all use. For example, GitHub, it can be Slack, it can be Facebook, it can be anything, right? And then try to understand what part of that functionality you want to replicate. So this kind of lets you explore more about that application. Let's say for GitHub, what you want to do is you need like a UI and all the code needs to be shared. So thinking about how actually to share the code and how to interact via Git, it's like a nice use case. If you want to build your own version of Slack, you kind of want these chat interactions. And serverless also has a good use case of if you want to write a function to send emails or to write some notification system. There is a good use case. So you can work around that. You can play around WebSockets or some real-time communication APIs and kind of combine this with serverless. So yeah, a good way to identify what project is just see the day-to-day stuff that you all use and try to iterate on that, which is a very good way to learn new stuff as well. I am looking at the questions. So why you choose TypeScript writing functions? This was just so Priya, this yeah, just a personal preference. This could have also been like just a JavaScript variant without TypeScript. So TypeScript was yeah, just for personal preference. And this is also the thing. So when you look for certain options, some folks would have actually written like a TypeScript kind of blog post, but your use case might be without TypeScript, right? So this is where you want to like understand what this person is writing in their tutorial or blog post, and then kind of navigate your way around the application that you want to build. Next question, I would like to explore more about Netlify. Yeah, so again, these are like, there are a lot of these options which kind of always give free tiers. So Netlify, Cloudflare, Vercel have free tiers, so always like a good thing to get started. Yeah, based on your usage, they kind of start charging. So there is always like a free option, and this is where kind of the first choice won't be directly AWS, because yeah, AWS you need like certain credits, and it's always like it's paid. Cloudflare also has a free tier. So then how is Netlify serverless function different than just hosting on Netlify regular? So yeah, this one is about serverless versus using just Netlify for deployment. Again, these are like clearly two different things. What I showed was a use case of serverless as a function and the application together. So you can just have like a static site, which can just be like a static website. The first use case that I showed about the front end blog post, which is just like a Gatsby powered static site generator, or you might have your own static site blog post, etc. So this you need to deploy somewhere. So for this, you choose like a content delivery network or static site hosting providers. In my case, I always, when this is the use case, I always use GitHub pages. So on GitHub pages, you always have the option to kind of deploy it and kind of gets available on the cloud. And that's where using Netlify regularly, right? So there is like an option to only like deploy pages. Same goes with Cloudflare. Cloudflare has Cloudflare pages, just like GitHub pages, just like Netlify. I guess Vercel also has that. I've not tried Vercel, but it will have. Now, going the serverless route, Netlify serverless means they also support function as a service, and that's where you can deploy serverless things. GitHub doesn't have that. GitHub pages does not support that, and Cloudflare has, they call it workers. So the functions from Netlify are kind of called workers in Cloudflare, but the way you write, the terminology, everything remains same. AWS has lambdas, and then Vercel also has serverless functions. So yeah, Larry, if that kind of answers your question, that's mostly about serverless functions versus just using a cloud provider for regular deployment. Any other questions?
Well, I think that's a great demo and great presentation, Princiya. I think that more than a talk, you are giving us your legacy here.
I was